Financial disclaimer. The information provided in this stream is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional financial or investment advice. We are not licensed financial advisors, and the content presented here is based on our personal opinions and experiences. Investing in stocks and other financial instruments involves risk, including the potential loss of capital. Any investment decisions you make are solely your own responsibility, and you should conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment choices. The content we share on this stream may not be accurate, complete, or up to date. Market conditions and financial regulations can change rapidly, and we cannot guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information presented. We do not endorse or promote any specific stocks, companies, or investment strategies. Any actions you take based on the content of this stream are at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses or damages that may occur as a result. Always remember that past performance is not indicative of future results, and no investment is guaranteed to be profitable. Make informed decisions and consider your risk tolerance before investing any funds. By accessing and using this stream, you acknowledge and agree that we are not responsible for any investment decisions you make as a result of the content presented. You are encouraged to seek advice from qualified financial professionals for personalized guidance. Please invest responsibly and only with money you can afford to lose.
Hey man, just found the next guaranteed multi-bagger.
Hey man, you found another one? What is it this time?
Come check this out.
Okay, next please. How can I help you, young man?
We want to go in on PAVS. First of all, we know potential when we see it, and anything that drops from 28 bucks to 20 cents in the last week is going to be on our radar.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check and it's gone.
Hey, Johnny, welcome to the Laugh at Stock, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, good. It's been... I'm just doing my screens, and I'm a bit confused, Dane. It seems like things are doing not so well, but here we are finding like tons of biotech stocks all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, what do you call it? When I pull up, we were just looking at Dave for a sec, but like, for instance, it's kind of funny because right now, I mean, I go back and forth because I listen to some of the top traders, and they say, like, they don't trade when the 10's under the 20. And it obviously depends totally on your style and all these other effects. But like this drawdown right here. So I was saying, I hope we have a great week. We literally had 5 days in a row of down days, which is super rare. I was looking historically over the years, and that only happens once or twice a year, like every year. Sometimes, and I've seen 6 and sometimes 7. 7's the most I've seen it, and that's going back like 7-8 years. I didn't look any further because I don't really care. But just wondering. But yeah, I had 5 awesome down days. Although there was a lot of recovery, actually, even though Friday opened down, it recovered a lot that day. It didn't end positive, but there was definitely some buying going on. But yeah, you look at the NASDAQ here, and then like if I go to let's just see, this is one of my watch lists here. Like, I mean, there were some strong names: Fuel Cell, AMC, AII, AGL, and then like, you were throwing out some names like SLS. Dave had an amazing day. So like, the stocks like in my wheelhouse are doing well still. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I have my own rules now for not trading and trading. And it applies more directly to my style from what I've seen from like my feedback. But I still think I think it's like the bigger stuff that pulled back that just made like the overall markets look down. Well, not necessarily anything more than that.
Yeah. It's so. I was just telling you also, like, if I had performed better for the year, I would have treated this a little bit different. I've been very careful now, maybe too careful, but right now I'm just in Dave, which has been pretty good for me. in this time where the market is going down. You know, Dave has been performing really good. And I have just, I kind of follow that rule that you just said, like simple stuff using the EMAs on the QQQ, for example, and when they are sloping down or not in the right order, I just break a little bit. But that's for now. I like, you know, that rule I think is when you Tulamagi and them, they talked about that, and I think when he's talked about it, it's because he knows he has an audience and all that stuff. He wants to, you know, this is a simple thing you can follow. I know he also at the same time he said like, yeah, you should follow this. This is so simple. That's what you should follow. But at the same time, he says on other streams that in these up and down periods, like when the Nasdaq and QQQ and all them are building bases, there's a lot of opportunity, which is counter to that rule that we are talking about, you know. So it's just something I think they throw it out there to our audience that they don't know how much work they have done. So it's just a simple thing to follow. And that's what I'm following at the moment because I want to, I compare myself to last year and so far I'm crushing my performance from last year. And I want to be careful when it is a bit tricky, and then when things are aligning again, I will go in heavy. And maybe next year, when I'm even better, I will treat it different. Because when I look at my scans now, I looked just a few days ago, like there was no biotechs almost showing up. And now they are in the top of the scans. It's like, and I have 24 tickers being in biotech. And 22 of them is from the last month, like in the 1 month scan, you know? So this is a recent move that they have started to move together. So you might still get a lot of good setups there, but that's definitely where my eyes would have been. And also in like some groups that are close to biotechs, like, you know, some medical things. I saw a lot of them as well. So there are definitely opportunities, even if you want to follow the rules with the EMAs on the QQQ, but I have just decided to be careful. So I haven't done anything this week.
Well, that might have been the right move because even though this was a very educational week for me, not in the way you would like it to be. I got destroyed this week, but you know, in hindsight, it's like one of those things that like as I switch my style over to something here, it's and my issue this week was really execution, and it's just running into things I wasn't kind of like in my head prepared for. Like I knew what I was supposed to do and just didn't execute properly. So if I can change that, it'll be for the better. So just to be transparent, because I got literally smoked this week, I was down 8.5%. So, and I know I've been working super hard all year, and everyone's probably, hopefully I don't look back at this and just call myself a total idiot, but you know, for the year to date, I'm technically still positive. So I'll take it. Yeah. But I really don't care. And when I say that, it's because when I look at the math and the numbers and what I'm tracking and how I'm trying to do this, if I had executed properly this week, I told you I would be up 27% for the whole portfolio, which is insane. So, and you know, you can think whatever you want about those numbers. It is what it is. And obviously I can say I'm supposed to be up that much and I'm not, because that's not where I'm at. I'm the exact opposite. But, with things that I did, you know, I learned like, okay, you should have, you know, really paid attention to this and you should have done this. And, you know, when you're saying you're going to do this, you have to do these certain things. And I know that's kind of vague, but unless you've been in this position where you're trying to work on a system like this, it's hard to really, you know, without giving like the exact details of what I did. But stupid things like, you know, when I should be setting stop losses and, you know, just not really following the rules. And when I say not following the rules, I am following them. I'm not executing them in the way that like, if I had just set the stop loss as a hard stop loss at like a certain percentage, I wouldn't have, like one of the things gapped through for me, and I was just mentally watching it because I was on at the time. So I thought that was fine. And, at one point I was up and should have put it in place. So, just looking back, there's going to be some adjustments that I have to make. And hopefully going forward, it will lead to solid returns. But the one thing that I keep telling myself is like, if I get this system to work, for instance, like I said, I would have been up over 20%. It only takes 1 week to hop right back to where I was. So the numbers that I'm working with, they are crazy. Like when I'm telling you guys, like what I'm trying to build out right now, if I can get this to work, it will be extremely profitable. But it's tough, and there's so much going on, and there's so much nuance, and maybe, the worst case scenario is this works on paper and I just can't get it to work in actuality, which that's a possibility I have to accept. So if that's the case, I'll go back to what I was doing before, where I was scalping relatively successfully. Because and I look back and working on how I was scalping and all these different metrics I track, if I did that for a full year, even during these time periods, I found that I probably could make anywhere from 100 to 200% in a year, which is obviously great. But the numbers that I see doing it this way are even higher than that, which I know sounds crazy. And like I said, maybe it is. I don't know. But I'm at this point, I'm like at the wall here where I just don't care. I'm going to either do this or not. And I'm determined to make it work. So
I think Dane, what you're doing, and I know for me personally, I've also I'm constantly testing, and what we are doing is we are trying to find our own style that works for us, right?
correct.
And that is, we want to be positive with the gains in a year, right? But my focus has more switched over to the process.
Yeah.
I know I just said I don't want to give anything away, but that is part of the process as well. That is part of the process, to follow those rules that I just spoke about. And then that process will develop maybe next year already. And I will go back in hindsight and look, hey, you should actually be a bit more aggressive in these terms. And this is something I learned by myself, going through the charts and reflect on everything I've documented,
Mm-hmm.
And I know you do the same now. So I think in that time, it will be only be natural to give away some gains, and it doesn't really matter because you have seen there's a end goal here that will be potentially fantastic,
Right.
And I'm sure you're going to reach it. But it's natural. Right now, where I am right now, I don't. Of course, I care about the profits or the losses, but that is not my main focus, and I think that's how it should be until you land on something that you're comfortable with and that works for you and your life, and then you can start to try to compete with yourself year after year, in terms of the profits.
Right. Yeah, and with the style that I'm trying to do, it's when I look back at the numbers, easily you could make 10% a week. I mean, it's super common to make 10% or well over that in a week. So, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there will be down weeks, so it's not like it's always going to be profitable. It's not the goal. But the goal is to really outperform. And I've done this a couple times now, I feel like, and if you've ever watched or really have tuned into the stream, I know there's a few of us who stick with us. Thank you guys, as always. When I initially started and I was doing some different things with, I was guaranteeing I was getting 20%, which is great. I mean, it's not bad, 20% a year. But when you compared it to historically what the S&P's been doing, I wasn't really outperforming. And who's to say how it would perform? Because I don't have a year of data. I know I was kind of in the year of 2022, but I wasn't really. I was actually doing a lot of building and stuff during that year, so I kind of missed where everyone else got smoked. Now I had a system where when I did the math, easily could have been anywhere from 50% to a little bit over that on what I was doing. And then, with the scalping strategy, when I look back, I've done all these measurements, and I could even push that one higher. There's other, what I was looking and originally doing, if I had just done a few other things, that one went well, into to 100% easily. You could easily double your account doing that. But when I see that, I see other things that, are even way, way more profitable and make those numbers look small. And like I said, I might find that you might not be able to actually execute on that, which at this point I'm willing to take that risk. Like, I don't care, because if you're able to hit those numbers, like those RQ numbers, like those are, like Minervini numbers, and, where you're hitting hundreds of percents a year, and like, it would just totally outperform. And the risk is, there, but also relatively low. And with the system I'm working on, it's to get it like really low. So that part, obviously, that's where I failed in my execution. But I still think that the numbers keep pointing me in this direction, that if you do this and you're able to really follow what you say you're going to do, it will work. So we'll hope. Next week's another short week, so we'll see how next week goes. For the markets, at least in the U.S., it's July 4th weekend for us. So I believe Friday is probably what's closed. That's the observance day. So I'll figure it out.
But I think it's interesting. Like with what you're saying now, you when you have spotted what you have spotted, in your data, you owe it to yourself to go and chase it and try. And you say, like, it may not work because it's going to be hard to execute, but that is also part of the process to try that angle. And then, okay, I gave it my all there. That was not working for me, but I tried it.
Right.
I think that's a very good mindset, because how else are you going to improve? And now we are talking about, you are on a pretty good level already, and you're trying to improve on that. There's always the next step. And at some point, you're going to be happy with the system that you have created. But if you go back, within a year, and you look at the data and something screams like you need to change this, because each cycle in the market are also not equal. So sometimes, like pure breakout works really well, and then other styles may work in other cycles. But I know you, and with your system now, you're looking also in bearish cycles and all that stuff, and still see good results. But I think it's just healthy. And I think it's also with your findings in terms of execution, I also discovered, like, because I document all my trades, and I've also built like my AI that helps me look at everything. And it now shows me that of 157 losers so far this year, which is a lot, but 79 of them, if you just monitor them for another month or so, I think that's my setting, like the next month, they were winners.
Yeah.
So that tells me my selection was good. I was in the right area. I was in the right group. I was in the right stocks. My timing and execution was what I was bad at, And also sometimes that's how it is. But I have started to think, like, maybe I should look into, if you just identify a group or two groups or three groups that are strong, we can talk about semiconductors this in 2026, crypto miners, software. If you identify them, maybe this is something I need to look into. Or maybe you can just like put a bigger percentage into one of those positions, and if you have identified then the right stock within that group, you should be fine just leaving it for, let's say, 2-3 months. If you go look at all the semiconductor names now that I have at least on my lists, it doesn't really matter which one you picked in 8th of April, you will be up 50% on all of them. So that is something that I'm going to look into a bit stronger when I have more things. But then I will have to deal with fewer stocks within a year. But maybe I will also outperform. And right now, you spot biotech stocks, you know, and you find one that you like and just try to stick with it for a bit of a longer term holding period. I don't know. It's something I'm going to check because my execution is not. That's where I need to improve according to my analysis.
Yeah, and you know, it's just a constant review. You know, I realized that I think one of the bigger things that I'm starting to focus on is when Q says that, you know, you have to look at tens and thousands of charts and stuff till this stuff becomes apparent. It doesn't necessarily become apparent just because you're staring at charts all day. Like, you can look at all these charts and you can see flag patterns and blah, blah, blah and all this nonsense, but like, that doesn't really mean shit. I mean, don't get me wrong, the setup is super important. Like, you do have to have the setups there. But I think just importantly is you have to have solid screens so you're pulling in the right kind of stocks. And if you understand the fundamentals of how you know, hedge funds and all these guys trade, that should allow you to work on your screeners. And then I see Value's in here. Value, how you doing, man?
Hey, Value.
So 199, one more to the big 200. If the charts keep going this way, we're going to need to invert the charts.
Yeah, we have that button, you know. We always have that option.
Yeah, I will invert these charts if I have to. Don't worry. I will make myself feel better about this. And then he said, when did we learn about your scalping strategy? Well, this one's less of a scalping strategy. This one's a little bit longer of a hold. And it's still intraday, but less scalping. It's more to catch bigger moves that happen on really strong momentum stocks during the daytime. And to be honest, Value, if this really does truly work and I'm able to, you know, make a couple 100%, you know, each year, you know, it's tough to say I could ever give the nitty gritty details, but I would happy to go over, you know, some of the finer details with you guys. And you know, on the stream, I'll always give general tips and ideas, and I'll, you know, try to be as transparent as possible. I just can't give away exactly what I'm doing. But as I measure stuff out here, I'll start to at least show you the trades I'm doing. Like, you know, I can show you the trades I do every week. I don't care about that. And then you guys can, you know, take it from there, what you want to take from that. But I think, you know, going through review, but, you know, I still have to start having positive weeks doing the strategy, because, you know, I'm obviously not going to share something that's, you know, works on paper but hasn't worked in real life. You know, if I could start to see the actual results, you know, in my account, then I'll be more willing to share. But that's the thing is, like I said, with Q in these charts, what my original point is that it's one thing to look at these charts, but you have to go through these charts and you have to take all these measurements and you have to look at all these things, and you have to find what mattered and what doesn't matter, and, you know, when you should enter and when you should exit. And if you follow this and you do this over thousands of charts, how would that have worked? Because if you can do the same thing on thousands of charts and it's always profitable, then that's a real strategy. That's a real edge. If it's, you know, it works here and there. I mean, you just have to figure out, and this is why Minervini and all these guys talk about, like, it's what your hit rate is. It's what, it just comes down to all those little things. And as you figure that out, you can start to build like your strategy off of it. But, you know, and don't get me wrong, when I look in hindsight, I always try and do the lower side of things. So, like, you know, when I'm trying to measure percentages and stuff, I always round down. I'm always like, okay, assume this is a negative, assume this is a loss, because, you know, I want the data to be as accurate as possible in terms of, you know, like, you know, I don't want to look at like what would be a perfect scenario. If you nailed everything, this is how much you would make, because that's totally unrealistic. I really don't care about that number. But either way, I really think I'm close. You know, there's like, it's funny because when you go through all these things, there's so many little questions and details, and I think of it as logically as possible. You know, like, if this occurs, then you do this. You know, just basically like if, then, and statements, just like coding. And with my strategy at this point, it's more just like trying to be as hyper efficient as possible. So, you know, the overall strategy itself, which is, you know, just to give you like a baseline idea of, it's just finding strong momentum stocks at the open. It's making sure that you are able to get into them within as quickly as possible, essentially, is the goal. And there's a few different entrance periods that I've created for myself. And then it's doing the best to capture the move while limiting risk, which, I mean, I know that sounds relatively, common, but, the goal is not to always catch like the high of the day. It's to catch the biggest chunk of the moves of the day. And then from that point, you guys know, I mean, obviously if you see my loss percentage, I'm putting in big amounts. It's, the risk that I take on is the fact that I'm going heavy in on these positions, but it's not overnight holds or anything like that. So I don't have the overnight risk. So that's another way I balance the risk out is, I mean, this is a style of day trading versus swing trading. But it's not like quick, like super quick, like hyper fast, like I was doing before with the scalping, which, like I said, I have the data for that too. And that still works well. And it was working. That was when I actually was executing on. So, I'm happy to return to that strategy if I can't get this one to execute properly. But when I do look at the numbers, this is, usually twice as profitable as that was, which is what, has drawn me to the idea that, like, if it's twice as profitable, like you might as well take a shot at it. So we'll see. I think that, like I said, I think I have 2 or 3 questions left, which I can't answer these questions until, I get more data. Like, for instance, it's like, should I pick this stock or that stock? And, at the end of the day, I see which one performs better. And that gives me an idea of, okay, you have to wait for this, or you have to, like, there's certain signals and stuff that you have to find. And those signals, when they come in, you have split seconds to make these decisions at the time, which is why I said the execution part is very difficult. And you have to, get your order in, have it placed, then set your stop loss, and you can't put the stop loss in first. It's just not going to work. And, I wish I had one of the setups where I had the hotkeys, and, I don't use one of the trading services that, you can buy a certain way, but I don't really care. I don't need it. I know it will work at doing it the way I'm doing it, but like I said, maybe it won't work because I can't get my execution right. But I'm relatively optimistic because, like I said, everything seems to work in my favor in terms of if I just follow what I'm doing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll put this up because this is actually, I know I said I haven't been using like a watch list per se because, it had ballooned up before, but I'm kind of back to this as my overall strategy. You'll notice I have like 6 or 7 watch lists now. So this is the one I've been finding works the best. So this will be the stocks that I'm looking at on Monday, just in case anybody's curious, which I know you had said that you saw a lot of biotechs, but on mine, actually, it's still heavily with computers. If you look down, computers, electrical, I mean, there is some other stuff in here, but semis still are super high, software.
It was that on mine also, Danny. It was just like biotech came from nowhere and just took the first place here, But the second place, semiconductors, then you have software infrastructure, you have semiconductor equipment and materials, you have software application, electronic components, information technology services. It's still heavily tech-driven,
Yeah, tech just dominates still, so.
Yeah.
And like I said, this stuff I'm all happy to show anybody. I don't care because, it is what it is. Anybody can come up with this stuff. But yeah, so, I'm hoping because the good thing about last week is even though I made all the mistakes, they really clarified in terms of execution, like you have to do this. You cannot not do these certain things. And if I can just make sure I live by it and live and die by those rules, that's really all I need to do. I mean, the otherwise you really kind of sit back. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is my goal is, and I know Q and all these guys talk about it. It's a really lazy form of trading because once I'm in, that's it. I mean, the execution part is really tough in the first like 10 minutes of the market, maybe 30 minutes. Just depends. I have been going in a little bit usually earlier than that. than 30, but sometimes I'll wait. Just depends on what the day is. But it's just one of those things that, you know, in hindsight, you look at all these things and you have these questions when things open. But that's why I said and this is something like nuance wise, you can't teach someone, because until you're like there at the moment trying to make those decisions, you don't know how you react. And that's what I'm learning is, you know, you assume in your head, like on Friday, I went into that day thinking, and Friday was the day I got hit the hardest. Or no, I don't know if that was the hardest. It might have been the other day, but either way, I still got hit and I shouldn't have. And that was just because I didn't expect something that occurred in terms of it, you know, the way it gapped down on me. And I had an opportunity to not let it gap down, which is why in hindsight, I'm like, if you had just done this, you wouldn't have to worry about it. And of course, the other day, you know, I didn't trade, and I realized I should have because I literally just missed one number. You know, I looked quickly and I read the number wrong, which made me not trade that day, and that would have been a huge return on that day. So, you know, all these things are just things you can reflect on, and then just keep working on it. And then, you know, I'm hoping that as these rules just become internalized, it's a fast process, and, you know, I can react and act quick enough to actually make significant gains.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking, like, when you talk about when you try to explain what you're doing, often I feel like, and I'm talking in general now, you know, often when you try to explain what you're doing in terms of swing trading, it sounds very simple. And, you know, Kulamagi and all that, he says that himself. Because like you said, anyone can spot these patterns. It's not so hard. You can see when things are getting tighter and the clear breakouts and all that stuff. But it's the execution that is tough, and where all the details are. And that is pretty hard to explain to someone, you know, because you have gone through a lot of data points, and you know what you have been burnt on in the past. And then you execute maybe just a little bit different than the next time, and that helps you. So it's also, even if you want to share the strategy, because I think when you watch Kulamagi's streams, he shares a lot, but I don't think, I've always felt like it's a bit hard to understand exactly what he's doing, and I'm sure he didn't share everything that he also did, but he was very transparent and he tried, you know. But at the same time, if you read the new book now, the Market Wizard book, he has gone from, I think that's where I read it, but in the book he said like he has a hit rate of 30%, and on the streams he constantly talks about how it's around 20%. You know, and that is a big difference in terms of, because he didn't check the numbers, but he did it before the interview in the book, because he probably expected to get that question. So that's a huge difference, you know, in terms of what he said on the streams, and in reality, what he figured out what it actually was. So when you go 10% up in your hit rate, you're going to have much better returns, obviously. But like these, I'm sure he thought when he was streaming, and probably last time he checked or something, it was closer to 20%. But these are like the small details, like when you try to explain to something and you just skip over something essential like that, it doesn't make sense sometimes to the people that you try to teach it to, you know?
Right.
It's not so easy to have all the details and be able to explain them, because a lot of it is just automatic, because you have gone through all the data points and twisted and tested things. So that's, I think everyone, you can get the general idea, and then you have to just spend time doing it.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize how important it is that, and you know, Q says this like right off the rip, is that he hasn't created anything new. He hasn't done anything different than anybody else. It's just the way he's formulaically taken all these ideas from someone else and executed them properly. And that's kind of my goal at this point. So when I hear like Lance or one of these guys or anybody, Pradeep, when they say something that like this is what they, you know, this is a number that they look at, or this is a possible way you could do something, I'm immediately writing that down as a note. And then next time I'm going through all my trades and saying, if I had used this as a idea, how would that have helped? Would it have hampered or helped? And you run that through every trade, and you know, pretty quickly you can see how did that perform. And you know, it's a little bit of manual work. You got to go through all the charts and, you know, compare it and contrast it to all these different ideas. But with that being said, it's, I mean, how can you not say the work isn't worth it? Because you know, the opportunity to have any strategy actually start to work is you know, life changing. So I
think it's also dangerous. Like, that is the absolute correct way to do it, because I think it's dangerous to say, for example, you watch Kulamagi and you want to do what he does, his breakout strategy, for example. And then you watch another trader that you also like, and you want to take, he has much better scans that I like than Kulamagi had, for example. And then you copy the scans from that trader and you try to mix it together. That doesn't necessarily work, because Kulamagi's entire system is also dependent on his unique scans to find the stocks, you know?
Yeah.
You should take elements from all the different traders that you like and that you follow and that you trust and you know are legit. I think that is a very good, but you need to test it and try it out. Like you just said, like, go back and look, if I implemented this in my style, how would it look? Would it improve, or should I dismiss it? You know, maybe it works for them, but not for me. That's the absolute correct way to do. You have to go back and test it. Like you said earlier, with a poor scan system, which I had last year, my scans were terrible. And that's something I was easy to improve, you know, but something I improved straight away. And now I find better stocks that fits my style. So I've also done a little bit of all of these mistakes, you know, but you can't get away from what you just said. Like, you need to test it on your own data, on your own trades, to see if it works or not. Just to grab it because you saw it on a stream, that will probably cause you more damage than good.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, is that like everybody's stuff is very specific to what they are doing. So like, to your point, my style, what I'm trying to do, I'm looking back and saying, if you had done this at this exact time and consistently done it, this is the outcome. But that's with all those variables that come into the exact way that I'm doing it. What works for me, with like the way your screener works or whatever programs you're using, if it's any bit different, it will not work. It's just totally different. It's you know, you have to find something that's very specific to at your setup. And I think if you can focus on that, you should find an edge. You know, I mean, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm as close as possible, without being there. But no, I think it's a really good point to just, you know, and you know, and like, you know, just to give you guys like a for instance, you know, I used to hear that, you know, Kulamagi says you can enter on the 1 minute candle, the 5, or the 30, right? Well, what happens if you go and track that on every trade? If you had entered on the 1, if you had entered on the 5, if you had entered on the 30, you know, how often does it work? What's your stop loss? How often does your stop loss kick you out? How big is that stop loss? If you had put it down to this percentage, would it have kept you in enough trades to outrate, you know, the hit rate of losses? Those are all those like little fine details that you have to start to like pay attention to and try all these different things. And you know,
by the way, I think in the book he also mentioned like the 15-minute time frame and then the 1 hour. So he is not locked to those time frames. Maybe that was in that period. Now he has changed a bit because he went back and tested like, oh, it's actually more successful if I wait a little bit longer and look at these a bit longer time frames, you know?
Well, and you know, the other that's also a great point too, because let's say the markets are super hot. And because they're super hot and everything's flying, you find that the 1 minute candle is the best time to enter because you got to just get in super quick. Like after a minute, if it breaks a new high, you go. But then all of a sudden we start to reach a part where the markets are really starting to pull back or they're moving sideways. And you find you almost have to wait for the 30 because in that time period, the 30 outperforms where the 1 just gets you chopped out constantly. So it's also the nuance of that.
You can use much the same rules on the 1 minute candle and the 30 minute or 15 minute, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same type of thinking. But I think this bull run we have been in now, and maybe the last one as well, you had exactly that. You had like things breaking out immediately, a lot of volatility in the opening, and then you usually get a little bit of a pullback.
Right.
And on a breakout trade, then it's easy to get stopped.
So, I mean, we can go through. I don't know what you want to go through. I know you said you didn't really trade much this last week, and
I haven't, and I have not also updated the lists. I was about to do it now, but you brought up Dave. That's the only one I'm in. I'm up 30% on it now, so it's been a fantastic trade so far. And I just told you before the stream, I don't see this. It can turn around, of course, but right now I don't see it being extended on any time frame, which I am very happy about because that means that it can potentially go a lot higher even from here.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was just looking. Next earnings isn't until 8/4, so
yeah,
I don't see anything besides some kind of like news or you know what I mean, like something kind of out of the blue. And affecting something.
Relative strength right now is pretty good on it because it just had moves the opposite to the market, and it makes me think I have not trimmed this position yet, and since it's not so extended, I don't want to trim yet, so I'm probably gonna, which means if it reverses on me and I get stopped out, I'm going to lose more of the profit that I have, which is fine. And I'm probably going to trim at some point, but right now I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It can be a mistake, but that's my thinking right now. You always, this is a problem, right? You always have to make decisions in the present when you do these things. And maybe come Monday and it's down 30%, like you said, because of some news or something. But and then I should, of course, have trimmed. But I at this stock, I've never been 30% up on something that is this little extended after 30% move.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thinking right now.
Well, and to like your point too, in terms of like backtracking stuff, like. Q said, he waits 3 to 5 days, sells a portion or trims, and then, waits for the 10 or the 20 to break. But I found it interesting too that, he holds Pradeep in such high esteem. He learned what he said so much from Pradeep. But Pradeep's strategy is on day 3, he sells a chunk, and on day 4, he sells a chunk, and on day 5, he ends it. And it's just interesting to hear that, both those styles work. And I wonder, in the long run, who outperforms, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it's apples and oranges at that point. But it's just interesting to hear that overall theme kind of is there, but it's not to the point that you can't do other things and both have them work.
Yeah.
But no, I think the chart historically has been quite choppy, but ever since the first big move in April, it's a nice looking chart.
Yeah, and if you zoom out, it's like very clear stair steps, on big bases. And my thinking has also, like what has entered my thinking also, like the move when it finally does break out on whatever news or whatever, it's quite a bit more than where we are right now.
Yeah,
but I have my stop. My stop is like I'm trailing it with a 9 EMA, so I'm gonna, you know, it's gonna, unless it gaps over it and just smash to the ground, I'm gonna be profitable on this one.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it looks good. I mean, this even on its pullback days, I mean, it's ending kind of close to where it was previously closing, and even this, like, you know, it gapped down here. You know,
Yeah.
same thing on yesterday, gapped down, and you know, just immediately buyers come in. So
And if you look at the candle on the day I took it, the day in which was Friday, 12th of June, I took it on a pullback, and that candle in itself looks a bit strong to me. Like it went all the way down there and came back up.
yeah,
And that was in the beginning of the day. It did break out, you know, so it came back up after a terrible U-turn, and then, like you said, it's just been showing some strength since, I think.
no, I mean, it looks good. It for sure looks good.
But this is the only one I'm in, and like I said, I kept hot and SITM on my daily watch list so far, but I have not gotten around to add things yet. So it's going to be more on that list when I'm finished, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I took AIIO. My computer overloads here. Apparently this is now frozen. There it goes. And I know it's, you know, it's below the 200 and whatnot, but like I've kind of taken Q's stance at times where he says it doesn't necessarily have to. It just has that nice flag pattern, you know, and now, you know, as it was breaking out. And, you know, these stocks are working. It's just with my, like I said, my entry execution was poor. And you know, if you look at the intraday chart too, it was tough because this, you know, it collapsed here for a second, which, you know, kicked probably a ton of us out. And then of course worked from that point on. But I mean, that just is what it is. You're gonna have stuff like that. You can't necessarily prevent that. But you know, these are the kind of things I'm looking at. You know, I'm looking at these moving averages. I'm looking at, you know, different time frames and ways to enter. You know, I'm looking at VWAP and paying attention to how everything reacts to it.
And really does. That has been like eye opener for me. Like, you know, I used the anchored VWAP.
Mm-hmm.
And just the idea behind it, that you can go to a broker and say, like, I want this amount of shares and I want it, you know, below anchor VWAP price or something like that.
Yeah.
It is something they actively use, and you see time and again you can find both resistance and support on that line. And when it is over, it looks good, and when it is under, you should wait a bit.
Yeah. Another one was MEI on Thursday. If I actually, let me just do, this is a 2-minute with extended hours, so this is Thursday on the backside here. But you can see it's another stock that, you know, just took off in the morning, and, you know, it did bounce around a lot, but just shows strong strength through the day. And those are the ones that you know, you're trying to work on and figure out how you can enter one of these things without getting, you know, immediately chopped out. And you know, when it comes to the strategy that I'm working on, it is super tricky. It's not easy in terms of like, you're going to hop into all these things and they're going to work. You know, you are going to get cut, but it's just making sure that you limit that. And you know, I talked about this a lot last week in terms of situational awareness, when you should trade, when you shouldn't trade. And I found that, you know, importantly, if you're going to trade and it's like, you know, because I have like these basic thresholds I have in my mind now. And let's say the day looks kind of rough. Like, let's say it opens and we're down, you know, 1.5%. You should play that day more conservatively if you're going to trade. Like, that's one of the things I'm starting to like think about. Like, okay, like this day already looks tough. Is it, you know, it could get worse. You know, maybe there's bad news in the markets, that kind of thing. maybe you'll decide right off the rip not to even trade that day. You know, it just depends. But that's the kind of thing in terms of like, you know, not just intraday charts, but, you know, if I look at the long game here, you know, on certain days when the markets are underperforming, is there even a chance of winning on those days? Like, should you even be trading on those days? If there is a chance you should trade, then how should you handle it? How conservative should you be? Should you use the same position sizes? That's how I've been playing situational awareness from last week. And, you know, I did iron out a lot of those rules in this last week. So hopefully that also will help me kind of going forward to limit the downside.
Thoughts on some of these new IPOs, Dane? SpaceX, CBRX?
I mean, SpaceX pulled back. You know, I mean, do I think this is going to plummet from here? I really don't, actually. I think, let me go actually to like a 60. I mean, we'll see. We'll have to see how everything kind of builds here. It's kind of a weird time period. And you know, there's so much hype in this name. This company is just insanely overvalued right now in terms of it's, you know, it's just too early. I'm not saying that this, you know, the funny thing about something like SpaceX is imagine SpaceX over the next 30 years gets like some kind of mining operation going on Mars or the moon and is able to, you know, extract some super rare minerals and, you know, generates trillions of dollars. That could happen. I don't know. I'm not saying that's not like a legitimate possibility. Maybe Elon's nuts. Maybe this guy figures out how to, you know, hop on a meteorite and bring, you know, billions of dollars of gold back to the world from space. I don't know. But my point being is like, I get it, why the hype is there, but you have to also think like, I mean, that kind of stuff, if you're trying to play this as like a long game, sure, go nuts. And maybe that's where like, you know, almost like a value style would be for something like this, where like, I would wait until this, you know, probably has like a rough patch and, you know, maybe, because we all know that these guys are going to dump these shares once it gets to a certain point. Sorry, my camera keeps twisting. I got to mess with this thing. But, we all know at a certain point, I mean, it's going to, you know, these guys are going to dump shares and, you know, the stock price is probably going to plummet from that point. Maybe after that dump is a good time to be interested in something like SpaceX. I mean, could you have traded the IPO here? Yes. I mean, this was a super easy IPO to trade. So much news and kind of like excitement going around the IPO that it was kind of hard to not picture it take off. You know, I didn't trade it just because, you know, honestly, I don't have much experience with IPOs, so I don't want to go like into like a different field just on a hunch. You know, I feel like initially when you get into trading, that's what you do. You go on a lot of hunches and you get smacked a lot for doing that. So I didn't want to do that, but I think Lance had like a great video on how IPOs work and how he plays them and like 4 or 5 different techniques to use and to watch for on them. So definitely, I mean, if you're going to do something, you know, do some research first before you're going to attempt something like this. And what was the other IPO you said?
CBRS.
This is the one I probably would have tried. Yeah. And would have paid the price here.
And the is it Anthropic or whatever it's called?
Yeah, Anthropic.
Right. Has that come out yet? Or?
I don't think so.
No. I also look at Tesla. If you look at Tesla and you go to the weekly chart.
Anthropic says not till October right now.
October, okay. Well, it potentially some good IPOs this year.
And OpenAI will be in September. So we got September and October for the next 2 huge ones. Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I just said if you look at Tesla on the weekly.
Oh yeah.
I really like it. It needs to break out properly, you know. But what a big base it's building. like sideways move really from November 2021.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just looks like it needs more time.
Yeah, it needs more time, but this is like with SpaceX and everything going on, you need to see, because you know, it's all of a sudden the guy has too many companies now, I think.
Huh.
But it's definitely, Tesla has been disappointing in this bull run, and maybe the last one too.
Yeah, but I also feel like all these mega caps, it's kind of the same story. Like, you know,
If you look at Microsoft, it's like they are trading really bad right now.
yeah, which you know, it's funny too, because somewhere right here, as Microsoft, I mean, what did it go up? It went up about 10% on that. On like some of these, well, actually from the bottom, more like almost 13. But you know, I saw this move, and I thought, you know, especially after this first pattern, that this was about to take off. I was dumbfounded that this took this big of a swing back downwards, all the way down to the base again at 25% loss, and then
I remember we spoke about it on where it was below the 150 EMA there, you know.
yeah, and then it's crazy to me that on Friday it has such a strong move with so much volume. You know,
There was a lot of more volume.
it's crazy. I mean, it's got to be one of
It
the
says
highest
there,
volume
Apple
days
and
for this big of a
Apple and
stock.
Microsoft. Sorry?
I'm just saying, for this large of a stock, I mean, 180 million shares moved.
Yeah, and the news was like Microsoft raises Xbox prices, and also Apple and Microsoft hike prices due to memory. So it's like that theme, which if you look at SNDK and all them ones, they don't look to slow down at all.
No, MU is the other one that Micron
Yeah.
just murdered it last. You know, these names right now are just. This is
crazy.
This is where it's at. But interestingly enough, I mean, like if you're just talking volumes and stuff, like, you know, I mean, you know, Micron does have some crazy volume, and I know that was a, you know, huge, strong earnings, so, you know, it was, and a lot of people are probably comfy pulling a little bit from this just because this thing is ripped for a whole year. But if you do go back to like the NASDAQ, for instance, I mean, the amount of shares coming out of these things is high, and obviously that's from the possibility of a rate hike. But I mean, me and, you know, we don't always talk about macro on here, but I just like to have a general backdrop of micro or macro, and you know, I'm actually surprised because so with the oil thing going on with Iran, obviously that's going to cause inflation. It's pretty simple to figure that out. And, you know, some of the metrics went up. You know, people are like, oh yeah, inflation's starting to climb up. Like now they're starting to think about possibly a rate hike. But that inflation isn't inherent to the system. That inflation's due to the increase in the cost of oil, and that's spreading its effect across all these different industries and causing the price to go up. So we can look backwards at data and realize that, you know, already the price of oil, I mean, where are we now here? I mean, it's got to be way down from wherever we were.
I just looked at XOM, and XOM is all of a sudden trading below all the EMAs.
I mean, we're literally back to where we were in August. So it's like, I mean, that right then it's back to almost normal pricing. So yeah. I get it. There's a solid quarter here of data that is going to show elevated for these months. You're going to see elevation in cost of these things, and some of this will take time to dissipate. But in terms of people thinking that there's going to be a rate hike, why would they think that there's going to be a rate hike? If you listened to what the what's his name, Warsh, is that the new Fed guy?
I don't know the name.
Oh yeah, I think it's Warsh. Either way, if you listen to what he was saying he wants to look forward as opposed to always looking backwards, like, you know, historically they've done. And the reason he's saying that is because it's kind of a shitty indicator to look back. So if anything, I would think that, holding rates neutral right now makes sense because we don't know the effect of what oil has done in terms of inflation. But the idea that, and don't get me wrong, I know the Iran conflict's not over. So I get it that there's the variable of that. But at the same time, if it's not long lasting, and at this point too, with, kind of Trump's attitude towards, Israel and, and this war in general, you can tell he wants to get out. He's, obviously, I think we can all agree that this isn't quite what he was hoping it had done. I'm assuming this isn't how he planned it. And now he's basically saying, like, I'm out. Like, I don't really care. Like, he's, and I know he plays word games all day and says that, he's going to declare victory somehow that we got out of this and it was total success. Best war ever, but, I just have a hard time thinking that if you're looking and you're just trying to think a little bit ahead, if there's temporary inflation, why would we be considering, rate hikes just for a temporary inflation? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not a macro guy. I just don't know why you'd put so much weight on something where I get it that you have to add in the possibilities, and a lot of this is probably computer algorithms determining, what's the likelihood of something happening, and that's how they place all their bets, which is why the NASDAQ sold off to where it did. But I don't think that this seems like a long-term issue. But I don't know. I'm not a macro guy, but yeah. I would think from here things keep moving on.
I was just going through some crypto charts again. Have you looked at, speaking of, you said the NASDAQ, historically, they don't have all those down days in a row. Pull up MicroStrategy, Dane.
Really, won't even pull it up for me.
Does not look promising.
Didn't you sit there? Didn't you say they're sitting on some incredible loss right now?
Oh yeah, I think I don't remember this by, here, but I think his average Bitcoin was 80 something, 80,000.
Yeah, I think.
And I checked the Bitcoin chart, and it's now back again to that floor. It actually broke through the 60K target here. I didn't see that, but I see it now, and it recovered a little bit. So it will be interesting moving forward to see if it just refuses to go much further below. But in the moment that it actually breaks it, this will be ugly.
I was reading because that one who's the billionaire that lost like a few $1 billion shorting something or whatever the dumb heck he did. He's like, everyone's considering him a genius, and then he lost like $2-3 billion and lost everything. Do you remember who that was?
Oh no, I don't know that story actually.
You would know him if you saw him. You've definitely seen this, but he's considered it's like one of the greatest losses ever. And I think they said that right now, MicroStrategy is sitting on like a $12 billion loss on this.
Can you imagine?
To lose $12 billion? No, I cannot imagine.
I was just going through the headlines here, and it's like MicroStrategy's Sailor could become a bigger villain than FTX Sam Bankman-Fried or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Grayscale's Pendle Hope strategy sells $3 billion in Bitcoin to restore confidence. So they are putting pressure to just sell stuff off now.
I don't know how that provides confidence, but either way,
if you look at the MicroStrategy chart, has already kind of broken that same floor that you see in Bitcoin. So if that is a leading indicator here of the future of Bitcoin price, we are going more down,
Yeah, I don't know anyone who looks at this chart and says, I want to try and invest here, You know, and if you don't have investors, traders are not your friends because they're looking against you and probably figuring out how long they can short this for. That's maybe the one thing you have going is maybe you get a bunch of shorts to try and get out of this and it gives some stabilization to the price. But it's ugly.
But interestingly enough, a lot of the miners are still doing well. Like I think
The miners,
said
yeah, the miners don't seem to care. I mean, if you're going to look at crypto, that's where it is in the mining. But that's also like a, I mean, I know it's not like a, it's funny to say it's a real business, but at least like they generate revenue.
Yeah, and I haven't looked into all of them like properly, you know, and I've never understood. Of course I understand like the idea, but there's never been a guy who have been able to explain to me in an easy way what Bitcoin is and also the blockchain and all that technology. And I don't, are the miners like, are they dealing like a lot with like blockchain technology and all that stuff too, right?
Yeah, but they're actually the ones mining Bitcoin. I mean, theirs is more just you have to have the computer set up. Like they
It's a bit
essentially
weird
theirs
in
is
that,
like electricity driven. Most of their profit.
But are some of these then connected to like AI? I assume also in some way.
Yeah, I'm sure. But
Because it's a bit weird that they look so strong when everything else in the crypto world is just like plummeting.
Well, maybe as less people are interested, the chance of them taking most of the revenue from these things goes up. I'm not sure. I'm not sure
that they are cashing in a bit. Yeah.
You know, and I would think too, computer parts are not cheap right now. I mean, it's super expensive to get computer parts. So I would think this would be tough, but I don't know. Someone who's more into this field would probably be able to better answer this. Because I am not super privy on this. I understand how it works. You know, the basic ideas.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah. But that's also why I've never been so interested. Like, please, someone come and explain it to me. Easy, like easy, like you can do with other things, you know?
Well, that's a circle of competence thing, you know? But I do probably got to get going here. Is there anything else you want to cover?
No, I have not. I've worked on my AI this week. I'm doing something really exciting. I'm very excited about what I have built there. I'm trying to add like models to it. And right now I'm trying to add like a research mode and there's a lot of work still. I don't know if it's going to happen or not because it's very hard to get it so accurate that I can trust it and use it. But so far it looks like promising. And the idea is like I can go to any chart, just click the button and it shows me which news drove the stock up. It connects it to the market environment in that period. It like scores the news and the styles and it group everything together. So I can, you know, you don't need to be a genius to understand what drives the stock price. We all know that, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm planning to build out a big database with historical things like that and also use it moving forward. Like if there's some similar type of news and specific news connected to a group that tend to perform better than other things. Like I'm just trying to build out a base with a lot of information. But so far it's tricky. It is a bit expensive because I have to like use like API calls doing it. But when I finally have figured it out, it will be, you know, it's something I can use without it costing too much as well. So it's super cool though, I think. Yeah, I'm really enjoying looking at everything, and it will definitely help me if I can make it work.
Yeah, no, from stuff that you were showing me, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and fantastic. That I'm an idiot, you know. I've always been interested to code and do stuff, but I don't know. I don't have any education in coding or anything like that. I know like some general things, which is, you know, how you and me met. We were coding the sheets.
Right.
But that's all. I'm self-taught, and I would never be able to build something like this without AI, of course. So I think it's just really cool, the opportunity that it gives you now to be able to create something that can make you sit on a lot of information potentially, you know.
Right.
But holy shit, it's frustrating to communicate with ChatGPT sometimes.
Yeah, that's AI it's a hit or miss thing.
Like you said, it's so stupid at the same time being so brilliant. It's so stupid
Yeah,
at the same
sometimes
time.
it's both. All right, well, I think I'm gonna end it there.
Yeah.
I know it's a short week. If you're in the States, happy 4th to everybody. I know we didn't really cover this, but it's gonna be an exciting week for football or soccer,
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
good luck to everyone in the World Cup. I saw New Zealand, they didn't make it, so sorry for that value.
Yeah,
but
sorry about it.
we have some teams left, and actually, Dane, we are on the same. No, sorry, we are not on the same side. Damn it, we cannot meet each other then.
Yeah, not yet.
In the final.
Yeah, I saw you. You guys play Tuesday. We play Wednesday. So,
Yeah.
But man, I mean, today's the first. It's Canada plays. Who's Canada play?
Or they play. Who was it again? They play South Africa.
I was gonna say. I thought it was South Africa, but I didn't want to. Didn't want to say without remembering. But
Yeah.
so that should be a good game. And then every day, 3 games. So it's pretty much nonstop for the whole week.
How's the weather in Dallas compared to your side of the country now, Dane?
So this whole next week we start our hot season. And
Yeah.
I'm in what you would consider like central New York. And next week the temperature, at least in like Celsius, would probably be like 33 to 37.
Yeah. That's
So I'm sure Dallas is like probably hotter. I mean 37, 30 to 39. It's gonna be hot.
That's where we're going to play the game now. So that's going to take a toll because we are also meeting Ivory Coast, which is a good team,
Yeah.
strong team.
Yeah.
So our idiot coach, he rested 10 players against France.
Yeah, well, I think that was he just was like, whatever, we're not taking it. Maybe, and I don't know how you put yourself in his shoes. I mean, if someone major got injured or something in that last game, you guys also would have been angry for that. So it's tough to say, but I agree. I always think you should give it a shot, especially if it could improve where you stand in the bracket.
Could have rested like four players, you know. But his thinking also was that Ivory Coast, they will have one more day of resting than we did because of the schedule. So he used that day, the match day, as a resting day for a team that's going to start, you know.
Yeah.
So I understand the logic, but I would be pissed if I used $6,000 to travel there to watch that game.
Yeah, I mean, but that is what it is. You can go to any game and your team gets smacked and you're like, oh my God, why did I pay for this? So it just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, but good luck to everyone.
You got to support the
It's gonna be
team up and
exciting.
down, man.
Yeah. We saw at least that we don't have a good squad. We have a good team.
Well, it's so hard to be like a deep team, especially at this level where you have the best players in the world playing. I mean,
Yeah, and this is like, my country has 5 million people. We were facing France, who could probably put 3 different teams on and still be through with no problem.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like it's tough to have depth, and I mean that's what makes great teams. Great teams have, great substitutions that they can throw in all match, and then you're playing good players that are fresh, throughout the game.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Yeah.
But
Now it's going to be interesting. And who you got Bosnia, right?
yeah, and luckily I have off Thursday, so even though we're the late game on Wednesday, no issues because I don't have to worry. I can stay up and
Nice.
watch it.
I watched one Bosnia game. I think it was against Canada. It was even. It was tough, but I think you have a better team than them from what I have seen. But the knockout stages are different because
Yeah, this is the real.
the
This is the real
mentality
deal.
comes in stronger. You know.
Yeah, and
Which
anything
Bosnia
can happen in a knockout game.
Yeah, but with the crowd behind you, I think I saw Pochettino, your coach. He was a bit angry because no one of the journalists congratulated him for winning the group.
Yeah, well, it's all media's annoying.
Yeah.
So
So, okay. Good luck to everyone. Then it's going to be exciting. I hope we can get through because then we're going to meet Brazil, which is my favorite national team in football, actually.
yeah, and hopefully next week I can return with finally a positive week of this strategy.
Yeah.
And yeah, even break even would be better for me
Yeah.
right now, or just to
You'll
recover
take
some
break
of.
even.
Just I'll be happy to just recover some of last week. So we'll see.
I will finish with a fun fact, just to end the football conversation also, Dane. Norway is the only team that Brazil has never beaten in football. Never.
Now you know.
So come with the Brazil, we will win, you know?
Yeah, it's gonna be a great week, guys.
Yeah.
We said it here.
All right. Yeah.
We can't have it any more. We can't be any worse, can it?
No, good. Can't. So this is going to be good.
All right, everybody. Have a good one.
See ya.
Happy 4th if you're in the States.
Oh, yeah.